Good afternoon. It's a real honor and a privilege to be here with you today. I would like to thank the College of Education for allowing us to hold the Bhutan Dialogues here. A special thanks to the President, staff, and the students that are with us today. You may know that June is Pride Month. And this is when we pay tribute and have recognition of the LGBTI communities, and we come together to celebrate them being themselves. To observe this important month, the United Nations in Bhutan and the Choden Foundation have organized this special edition of the Bhutan Dialogues on the topic of reckoning with gender and sexual diversity. Now, in 2020, the Parliament decided to amend a line from the Penal Code that criminalized sodomy and any other sexual conduct that is against the order of nature, previously treated and referred to as gay sex. I would like to commend Bhutan for taking that initiative, as this is the first step in reducing and stopping social discrimination against the LGBTI community. It will also help to correct the speech around preferences that people have. Deeply embedded homophobic and transphobic attitudes, often combined with a lack of adequate legal protection against discrimination on the grounds of sexual orientation and gender identity, exposes many members of the LGBTI community to violations of their human rights. This issue is receiving unprecedented attention at the intergovernmental level with the United Nations General Assembly, the UN Human Rights Council, and the Office for the High Commissioner on Human Rights repeatedly calling attention to the need to protect LGBTI community members from violence, discrimination, and hate speech. At this time, the UN is calling for equal rights and fair treatment for lesbians, gay people, bisexual, trans, intersex, all around the world. The Office for the United Nations High Commissioner of Human Rights has also launched an unprecedented campaign entitled UN Free and Equal. It's a public campaign that is promoting equal rights and fair treatment of LGBTI people. Now, the UN Free and Equal reached 2.4 billion social media feeds around the world. Also, I think, unprecedented. And this has generated more sort of repeating, more conversations, more streams on the topic around the world with educational materials so that people can actually understand what it means to be a member of the LGBTI community. The UN also produced some powerful videos, infographics, plain language fact sheets, several campaign videos, including a popular Bollywood-themed clip called The Welcome, ranked among the most watched videos ever produced by the United Nations. I encourage you to look it up. So we're gathered here today for the Rainbow Dialogue, a special edition of the Bhutan Dialogue. For those of us outside the LGBTI community, there are opportunities to show support, to observe, to listen, but most importantly, be educated. Our first speaker is Tashi Choden. May I take this opportunity to also congratulate Tashi for winning the Miss Bhutan title for 2022. Tashi is gender fluid. She has represented Bhutan at many beauty pageants in this past, and in the past she's also been Miss Indo-Bhutan, Miss Citadel, Miss Asia, Miss Supermodel Worldwide. Amazing. And I also understand that you'll be representing Bhutan in the upcoming Miss Universe pageant. So we wish you good luck with that. Our other speaker today, Regita, Gurung, hope I got the last name right. She is a cisgender bisexual female. So if you don't know what cisgender is, today you will learn about what that means. Okay? She has a Bachelor of Arts degree in politics, philosophy, and economics, as well as a minor in gender. She is an aspiring youth and gender social advocate. She has always taken part in or helped organize educational advocacy campaigns, workshops, and projects, okay, both in Bhutan and internationally. Our final speaker, who I believe some of you might know, is Phuntsho Wangyel. He's also my colleague in the UN country team. He is the head of the United Nations Population Fund, also known as UNFPA. Before he joined the UN, he was the head of Research and Evaluation Division at the Gross National Happiness Commission. He comes with extraordinary experience on policy review, analysis, development planning, and coordination, as well as evaluation. He also has substantial experience in the design and formulation of policies and programs that are related to vulnerable populations. He has a master's degree and postgraduate diploma in international and development economics from the Australian National University. Our host, Dr. Karma Phuntsho, who I believe you also must know, given that this is our 49th edition of the Bhutan Dialogues, is a thought leader, a social worker, and the founder of the Choden Foundation. So again, I hope that all of you will embrace this opportunity to listen and learn. We suggest that everybody here present keeps your questions short at the end of the session, concise and to the point, and we can also accept questions in the Dropbox, and Nina and Eugene will be compiling these questions and we'll read them out so that the speakers and panel members will be able to respond. And thank you again, Tashi, Derek.
Thank you, Carla, and good example to everyone. It's so wonderful to be here with you for the 49th session of Bhutan Dialogues. As much as we tried, this is the only second time we've managed to move out of Thimphu. So we are very, very happy that we could come to Paro this time. And particularly as we celebrate the Pride Month across the globe, it's so important for us to also reflect on issues and challenges that the LGBTI community faces. So it's wonderful that we have the opportunity to do that in this particular institution made up of educators and future teachers who will go on to shape so many lives across the country. So this is such a wonderful opportunity for us. The Bhutan Dialogues in general has been started about 4 years ago with the hope to basically push the boundaries of our thought a bit further, to conduct civil conversations with some bold critical ideas, to practice mindful listening, generous listening, to practice right speech, and through that at least try to refine our ideas of development and human progress. And when we talk about human progress, if you really look at a very civilized, advanced country, a civilized country ought to be compassionate and one that can accommodate the weak ones, the marginalized ones, the disadvantaged ones, the minority in a very wholesome, holistic manner. And when we talk about the LGBTI community, often the problem we have is the majority of us are male and female, and we think they should all fit into our boxes. And that is the kind of cultural or social prejudice and challenges that a lot of people face. And here is such great honor for me to have two wonderful young panelists, plus Phuntsho, who has been in policy making, research and policy and program coordination, with a lot of experience in especially serving the marginalized groups. So we really hope to get out a very meaningful conversation that will also be able to bring you some insights, some new knowledge regarding the rainbow community. Now, LGBTI plus is a rather long mouthful acronym, so I like to use the term rainbow community. It's really, when it comes to our sexual orientation and gender identity, it's not just two boxes of male and female, or even a third one, but there is a very broad spectrum, a very wide range, and we need to appreciate and accommodate all of that. So let me begin by asking Tashi, because you've just chosen your order of seating yourself. And of course, the first question I'm tempted to ask you is, Carla congratulated. I want to reiterate the same for winning the Miss Bhutan title. Are you still up in the clouds in elation or down here? How do you feel?
So I'm still trying to let it all sink in, and then it all happened out of nowhere and so sudden that it's very overwhelming, and I'm in a roller coaster of emotion right now. So yeah, it's quite unexpected, if you say.
Well, sometimes wonderful insights and wisdoms come from roller coaster moods. So let's hope that some jewels will come from you. Tell us about your gender identity. How would you describe yourself? What does that mean to you in terms of your identity?
So I identify as gender fluid, and the fun thing is, like, I came out as bisexual first. That was when I was 15, and then after a while, the term really didn't sit right with me because I tilted towards the same sex more. So then I did a lot of research, and that's how I came across gender fluid. And for me, I express it through my choice of fashion, and then how I indulge in social media, and then my how I reach out to other people. And then, because gender fluid is such a new term to our society, even in the rainbow community right now, because whenever I tell people about my sexuality, they're like, "But that's a new word. What does that mean?" Because gender fluid it has a very complex meaning to it, and then that's why I tell people in a very easy way. Rather than saying and then explaining to people what gender fluid actually means, I tell them, I'm a gay woman, and I'm attracted to women, like in any form. I'm attracted to women in general. So yeah, like it's like a very complex word, but then it's like how one day I can wake up and feel more feminine, and that's how I choose to portray myself as. I portray myself in a very feminine way. I speak more in a feminine way, dress up more in a feminine way, but then the next day I can feel more masculine. So that's when I dress up in a very tomboyish way, if you like to say that. So yeah, it's very confusing, but at the same time, it's like a whole adventure of self-realization, and it took me a long time to accept that. But then now that I have accepted that, it's helped me grow in a very confident woman that I am today. So yeah.
So you're quite at home with your sort of gender identity. It's really interesting. I've actually not listened to your description of fluid. What did you say?
Gender is fluid.
But in the Buddhist text, what you find is this description of some people, especially not talking just about gender identity, but about sexual sort of orientation or sexual urges, that during waxing moon, you may have the masculine or feminine, right? And then waning moon, you have another trend. So it is so open, right? And we need to embrace this kind of openness. But Regita, you are not as open. Or can you describe yourself? What do you mean by cisgender, for instance?
Yes, I identify as a cisgender woman, and I use she, her pronouns plural. So what I mean by cisgender is that the sex that I was assigned at birth matches my gender. And if that doesn't match, that's a transgender spectrum model. But I'm also a queer woman. The reason why I'm a queer woman is because I am a bisexual woman. And if I were to just give a small characteristic of what a bisexual person is, by the way, please look at the background. This is the flag for bisexuality. And because it's Pride Month, I brought it with me as well. So a bisexual person is attracted to more than one gender, and the attraction could be of different types. It could be romantic, it could be aesthetic, and it could be sexual. And again, it could be at different levels.
So you you are bisexual, but why wouldn't you consider yourself fluid, for instance? Can you also, depending on whatever conditions?
Yes, so gender, in order to understand that is a social construct, and it's one's internal sense of identity. So at the moment, based on my own reflection, based on my own journey or exploration, I feel confident being a bisexual woman. Maybe in the future, with more learning, more unlearning throughout the journey, I might have a change in my identity now. But that's why gender is a spectrum, and one should be allowed to just explore one's agency and find the stuff that one is confident with. So that's why at the moment I'm confident with terming myself as a cisgendered bisexual woman.
Yes. So you have been in the government office, particularly GNH Commission, and now you are leading the UN Office for Population Activities, UNFPA. How well is this kind of sort of rainbow spectrum taken into account in the public discourses, especially when you are formulating policies and plans? And also, how do the authorities or people in the official level, are they aware of new terms like fluid gender or cisgender?
Thank you so much. Before I respond to actually congratulations on this being both now and coming up on stage and looking about the gender identity and trying to make it. And for those who wanted, I'm straight. I identify myself, strength from technical, but with the gender as assigned at birth. Okay, correct? So I was trying to educate myself on the way here. There's a lot of permutations and combinations, just on the straight side. With respect to the status here, I'll have to talk about it at a more global level first. Because at global level, the community people, they are counted amongst the most vulnerable and marginalized. And this community and their families actually experience widespread violence, stigma, and discrimination. And sometimes from their own family members too. And this actually prevents them from enjoying their rights, and then it also impedes our efforts to achieve the sustainable development goals and also our commitments to achieve leaving no one behind. And I'm assuming in Bhutan, it's the same. They are probably facing similar discrimination, violence, and stigma. But maybe at a different scale, maybe at a different level of severity. But I'm just conjecturing here because there's no data or studies done. Personally, I see them as a community that's trying to be understood and accepted for how they want to express themselves. And within the official discourse, actually, I'm not aware of the existence of any system within the government to afford any specific status to any community or group. But recently, the government actually directed the review of the gender equality policies for inclusion of the rights and needs and concerns of the LGBTQI community. And the UNFPA is supporting that review.
We are observing the Pride Month. Regita, how are you observing the Pride Month? Are you doing something special? And how would you use it to educate people about different kinds of gender identities?
So for more, every year since undergrad, I've always taken part in various advocacy projects programs, both here in Bhutan as well as internationally. But this year, Pride Month is extra special because I started it by actually attending a meeting on the National Gender Equality Reform, policy reform. So that was very engaging for me. And I also do use my social media to create content as well as share advocacy materials, educate people around me. And at the same time, because Pride Month is also a month to celebrate our own self, I take this month to actually do my own reflection of my own identity, and again, journal it and again educate myself.
Are you doing anything, Tashi?
Well, I'm not doing as much as Regita is right now because I've not been fully involved in organizations and then to talk about the LGBT community. But then going forward, I'm trying to get involved with the organizations more so that I can reach out to the LGBT members and then talk on their behalf, because when you have a voice, you need to be heard. So I'm trying to get in touch with a lot of international figures who are successful in their own lives and who are a part of the LGBT community. I'm trying to get in touch with the past and the future Miss Universe contestants, so that we can have a Zoom meeting, and then so that we can have a social media, so that we have a social media presence, and then we can talk on the matter since it's Pride Month. So I'm trying to reach out to as many organizations as I can.
But as Phuntsho was sharing, when it comes to gender issues, particularly to this very broad spectrum, and a lot of people having some identity that we haven't even heard of. So there's very little data available. There's very little sort of material out there to tell us what is really happening on the ground, the situation. So I suppose most of the things that we have to rely on now would be episodes and anecdotes. Do you, for instance, in your personal life, have you ever faced any challenges because you're of fluid gender?
Say that I haven't, but I feel like comparing to the other members of my community, I have an easier time coming out because I've always been very bold and very proud of who I am. And at first, it was really, like I said earlier, it was really hard for me to accept my sexuality. But then what I realized was if I don't accept myself, I can't let myself grow. And then when that doesn't happen, it hampers in my growth as a woman. And so yeah, like the only challenge I faced till now, being a member of the LGBT community, was my thought process. I was worried about how society would react to it, and then how my family would react to it. So like I think I was holding myself back in that way. But then overall, I don't think I had a bigger issue coming out.
Both of you actually, you are probably far better off in that you have that femininity, and you are also, you can choose to be the female gender easily in the eyes of the society. Last year we had a panel of 3 people, Cisgendered being one, and then Vincent Gully and Pema Dorji. Now for them, especially say Pema is dating men. Wearing can make people raise their eyebrows. Yes. It can be quite uncomfortable. So when you come across such situations, how would you deal with that? What do you expect the society, or how should the society learn to accept these different kinds of gender?
Yes, no. So like you stated, Mona and Tashi also stated, my straight passing and my cisgender identity doesn't face the marginalization the others face. So of course, I won't be able to represent them in the troubles. But the stereotype more that a society has of the LGBT community, now that is a problem now. We tend to homogenize the community, box them to stereotypes that, oh, if you're a gay person, you have to look a certain way, talk a certain way, behave a certain way. So in a way, our individuality is then neglected now, which is the biggest reason why a lot of the people in the community face discrimination. Because people are not able to see beyond the gender identity, the expression of the sexual orientation now. So I feel that one of the easiest ways to not do that is to not see somebody who just the gender identity now. Because that's more like, even you share more about compassion, being mindful now. So it's not a matter of being able to understand the different complex gender identities now. It's a matter of extending that compassion and that mindfulness when talking to another person now, being sensitive in the way you talk. And if you don't know, it's best to ask now. Especially if we can start with pronouns now. So when you meet somebody, instead of assuming that they are of this gender or this sexual orientation, why not just ask now? Why not let them speak about it? And why not let them tell you how they want to be treated? So I feel like that healthy communication could help in avoiding the discrimination, avoiding the tension within the two communities, and helping us become a very, I think, harmonious community or country as a whole.
So, of course, you can expect others to ask, but in some cases, like for instance, Tashi, you are a fluid gender. In the short bio that I was shared, you prefer the pronoun she, or you're using the pronoun she. But sometimes when you have this masculine side coming out in you, would you be offended if somebody by mistake uses the pronoun she instead of he? Now, and in such cases, maybe the LGBTI community have to be also a little more tolerant. So people can make mistakes given this complexity.
I've always gone by the pronoun she and her. So like I've never had to face that issue with the pronouns because I tell people that I go by the pronoun she and her, but then there was a time when I had really short hair, and then people referred to me as he and him, and some referred to me as she and her. But then I never really minded that because, like I said, my gender is fluid at that time. And then when I present myself in a very masculine way, people will obviously be like, oh, that's a he. So, and then I've never minded that. But then there are some other LGBT members who are very sensitive towards this, like the whole pronoun thing. And then, like Regita said, I haven't faced that, so I can't be talking on behalf of that because that is their experience. And then they need to be able to come have a platform and then come up and talk about it on that kind of issues.
I think I just want to add now. I think the intentions matter because it's human to make a mistake more than the first time you meet someone you don't want to pronounce it. That's natural. But most of the time we use these derogatory pronouns or these words, but oftentimes that's why the LGBT community feels more smaller. So if your intentions are clear, you can always learn that. So like I said, the first time you can make a mistake, but I think the second time you can learn putting in that extra effort to educate yourself as well and be mindful.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think it was Pemma who pointed out last year that sometimes it's the language that constricts us. In the English language, there is he, she, and it, and we obviously can't use it, right? So, whereas maybe just calling the name or using a title may make it much easier. I mean, Lopen is a very gender neutral title in many ways, things like that. But Phuntsho, when we look at these challenges, especially in educating people to understand this broad spectrum of gender identities and sexual orientation, what can we do to educate the society, particularly the young children? I mean, we are fortunate here to be with future teachers, but we should probably do something that goes beyond even just one institution. Is there anything in the pipeline with UNFPA in terms of such mass awareness campaign?
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. Before I answer questions, still go back to what you asked earlier to my colleagues here. And something that struck me while we're traveling to Power, in fact, it was a comment that Regita made about being here, being able to speak and participate. She used the word privilege, and I was quite struck by that. I mean, just that this is a privilege for the community, just to be able to come out, speak, present yourself, and she also related that to how they move around in the society. So that's something that really struck me. This is what I shared. So you can imagine how students are designed. Now, with respect to the case of Bhutan, there are some who say that the situation in Bhutan is relatively better than some countries in the region or around the world. And there are also some who state that nobody has been prosecuted in Bhutan on the basis of, say, their gender identity or sexual orientation. Although the law itself was criminalizing homosexuality, which is recently changed as recent as December 2020. But that being said, when we have engaged with the community, while we are supporting policy making and also to let them to have discussions, they have revealed that they still face stigma, they still face discrimination, and they still face violence. And then, like I said earlier, of course, the severity and extent of each person. And then they tend to reflect and think like any other society. For us, we'll have to change our culture and societal prejudices. And that's going to be one of the biggest challenges to change that. And if there are efforts, it has to be efforts to get towards changing our society and cultural prejudices. And in fact, on the way I was just talking to them, was really quite deeply involved in the formulation of the policy for persons with disabilities and another marginalized group. I was just saying, in some ways, disability, implementing the disability policy is going to be more challenging because the amount of resources required in terms of making accessible infrastructure would be greater than what's required possible if there's a policy for the LGBTQI community. But in many ways, it's going to be even more challenging because it's about changing mindsets, and then sometimes we know changing mindsets is going to be one of the most difficult aspects. So, but we still know the cultural mindsets can change, norms can be changed. What we need is concerted actions. So, we need to improve the society's understanding and acceptance of the community, and this can now only be done through advocacy and education. And like Dr. mentioned, we need to get them young. This has to be mainstreamed and integrated into schools. So that's one of the most important things that has to be done. And we'll also have to make use of champions of change. Like we'll have to use, say, religious leaders, community leaders. And I think on the part of the government, like all governments, they should focus on creating the right legal and policy environment where we can have an environment where the rights of the LGBTQI community can be ensured. And on UNFPA, we're actually partnering with the government and CSO to some of these aspects.
I mean, we are really fortunate, I would say, that we, at least in terms of our spiritual and cultural heritage, are by far better in having this accommodating open society. We don't have a very strong dogmatic system that would lead to stoning the LGBTI community members. But then, here the problem lies more in the small things that we need to fix, it seems. So, for instance, if you look at schools, since a lot of our people in the audience will be going on to become teachers and perhaps also influence the infrastructure building in schools, school toilets seem to be still a challenge. And that there is male and female, and where do a trans go? And this has been shared last year by Tashi that after a while, people who are trans will have to give up education because they can't fit into these two boxes that we know of. Similarly with dress code. So it's probably the small pragmatic things that we need to perhaps change. And should that come maybe through policy? Or what would be best way to go forward? I'll come back to you again on this.
I suppose it has to be a combination because first, to enjoy their rights, the government will have to legitimize their rights. So to legitimize their rights, one way is to start with a policy. So the policy has to stand up their rights, it has to take care of their needs and concerns. And then of course that will have to be simultaneously, so the society has to be educated, society has to try and understand their needs, concerns, and then have to accept and accommodate. So it will have to be a combination of those.
But what I want to come to, and is when you talk about these things, the Bhutanese culture in some ways had the LGBTI or whatever you may call it, the third gender in the villages, being sort of very comfortably, happily accepted. I know some young women who grew up dressed in robe and living their whole life like that, but it is now that we are making some hue and cry because there aren't enough sort of equal opportunities, let's put it that way, in the official and state services and institutions. But when we do that, of course, two of you are well accomplished. We have got so many titles to your name. You are also way to rising star, isn't it? Way to global rising star. So you have that stature where you wouldn't be disturbed by the small discrimination that happens. But a lot of people, the more they advocate their identity, it can also risk provoking people's sort of, dislike of you. So how do we balance that? Now, while we talk about Pride Month and gay rights and so forth, it also sometimes unnecessarily provokes people.
Yes, so like you said, queerness isn't a new concept, and we've had people from the queer community for as long as history dictates, but it's just in the recent times that you see it out in the public, more visibility. But that's the very difference, just because our society was subtly acknowledging doesn't mean that it was accepting or that it had given the space for people to be visible, to be confident, and to be free in who they are. So that visibility plays a really big role, and the reason why I see this is because otherwise
living as a queer person is rather isolating. The mental toll one goes through in trying to figure out one's identity against the gender norm that is already there, it's already very stressful. On top of that, when you don't see people of your own like identity or the community up in the media, as representative, of course, it can make you feel like you're the only one. So in the recent years, with entities such as Pride Bhutan or For Voices of Bhutan coming forward, giving the platform to for the LGBTQI plus community to speak up about their stories, allows the other, especially the younger generation, to look forward to an inspiration, to a role model, people in their own community to relate to love. And this helps us, again, come up with a very solidified community together. So that's why I feel like acceptance is still a long way to go, but that acceptance plays a big role in making us feel confident with who we are.
So I believe that there are pros and cons to everything we do, but in this kind of situation, I believe that the pros outweighs the cons, because in rural communities, there are individuals who are still trying to figure themselves out, and they might feel that they don't. They stand out much more because of how they represent themselves as. So because of advocacies like this, I believe it helps the individual figuring themselves out. They'll have the resources, they'll end up doing a lot of research. Okay, so this is who I am supposed to be, this is why I'm feeling a certain way. So I think advocacies like this helps them have a lot of understanding of why they're feeling that way, why they're in that situation. And then, like Regita said, acceptance is, for me, as long as you accept yourself first, then the rest follows, because self-acceptance comes first. But then there are some individuals who think that who don't feel safe to come out in rural communities. But just because of this kind of advocacy, they reach out to the organization. Even though they're closeted, they reach out feeling that this is a safer place for them. So they come out to us, and then they register, and then they get more learning, they get more resources, and that's how they end up being more confident in their own skin.
Yeah, so this kind of campaign and advocacy has helped a lot of people, I would say. I think we know that there are quite a lot of people who are still not willing or not daring to come out, living a life in the shadows. So the effort is really to make the society accept them as they are. But among these people, how many do you think actually are also struggling to accept themselves as they are? Did you, either of you, go through that challenge? I think, Tashi, you mentioned a little bit earlier about how you have been trying to figure out your gender identity. So sometimes people may be trying to deny their own identity. Is there also that challenge, not just a societal measure, but actually a personal, individual one?
Like I mentioned earlier, I did have a tough time trying to accept myself, which hampered my growth. And then it had a toll on my mental health as well, because I felt like, okay, I'm not normal, something's wrong with me, because I wasn't as feminine as other girls, and then I never was the normal kind of straight girl that people wanted me to be, but then just because of the fact that I couldn't accept myself, I started questioning my worth as a human being. And that's what happens when you don't have acceptance from society, when you don't have that parental acceptance. So that's why I tend to reach out to people who are still closeted, even if they're very uncomfortable to speak about it. I want them to know that I have been through that, and then I can be someone that they can rely on with that kind of information, so that they don't have to go through a total mental health, that self-worth, having that toll on yourself is a huge thing. Going out, it can happen in a lot of ways, and then it can traumatize you for life. So yeah, but then as soon as I started accepting myself, I realized that I started to have more love towards myself, because if you don't have love for yourself, you can't give it back. So yeah, self-acceptance and self-love is something that I have a huge belief in.
Wonderful. So now you have full dignity in your gender identity. And I think that's what everybody who has whatever kind of gender identity should have self-esteem, be proud of who you are. And I think in a Buddhist society, we ought to accept this diversity in people's interests and aspirations and sexual orientation and gender identity and so forth, because that's what the Buddha is well known for understanding the diversity of people's differences, the diversity of people's inclinations and so forth. Two of you are such great champions belonging to this group, and I hope you will inspire many others to come out and be happy with who they are in terms of their identity. And we also hope the society will increasingly accommodate more and more of the diversity. Before I ask you my final round of questions, I think we'll stop here and get questions from the audience.
Not exactly a question, a comment, and I would like to request any of the panelists, female panelists, to comment on my comment. And that would be about professional observation. And what I found is the whole LGBTIQ community seem to have a high sense of clarity around your identity, which is a very wonderful thing. And to do that, by the way, my job is, I'm a counselor here, and my name is Wangyel. So to do that, what I'm trying to say is, you really need to have a good grip on your understanding about yourself, interpersonal kind of intelligence, self-awareness. I think lots of homework, introspection needs to go there. And we are also aspiring to push that in our students here. And for some reason, we are not finding that click. And my observation is when you talk about identity, so which is like quite advanced in the sense of conventional understanding of identity. So my assumption is your friends here might be quite surprised because they actually do not believe in identity as in self-identity. Rather, we are very much collective. Like they see themselves in their friends. So they're happy with it. So do you see that as a challenge, maybe a huge miscommunication going around? Because when you do not have the understanding of conventional sense of identity in the first place, how do you actually advance and talk about gender fluidity and like other kind of jargons? I do not know. So I would like any one of you to comment on it. Thank you, self-host. And
But for me as well, I didn't directly knew that more than I was gender fluid. So I went through a lot of identities before I reached gender fluid. There was a time where I thought I was trans as well, because I felt more masculine, like I said. So like you can never be sure of what you can identify as. So it takes a lot of learning experiences. You have to know where you turn towards, because sometimes you can be more on the same sex when it comes to, for me, because I was bisexual first. And then I thought, okay, so this is who I am, I'm attracted to both genders. But then going on and then having a lot of experiences, meeting a lot of people, and then the people involved in your whole journey of self-realization counts as well. Because I met a lot of wonderful people, and then I started getting more towards my same sex, and then I was getting farther away from the opposite sex. So that's how I knew I wasn't bisexual. And then that's how I ventured to research more on identities, and that's when I came across my gender. Then after I realized, oh, okay, I'm not bisexual, I might be bigender. But then slowly I realized I wasn't bigender. So it's like a total, like emotions, experiences, meeting new people that leads up to the final identity that you want to conform with, which for me was gender. So it's like a whole, it's like a level of classes. You succeed in one, and then you reach the next one, and that's when and then at the end you graduate. So I graduated as gender fluid. Yeah.
I also actually wanted to add, the reason why I wanted to add is because I'm also a late bloomer when it comes to exploring my gender identity. It wasn't until I was in my second year of uni studying my first intro to gender studies course that I got the space to actually reflect on my identity. So my comment would be that it's important that the people here have a safe space, a community where they can talk about it. Are we even having a dialogue, even if that's informal? In my university, I remember every weekend we would have a very informal dialogue where we would talk about our own journey of exploration. So I believe as aspiring teachers, one thing what we could have, even as aspiring teachers, is that community within the college where you have informal sessions every now and then, where maybe you might talk about one topic each week, but also give the space for people to talk about who they are, write it down. So I feel like because that dialogue is missing in our, I think, Bhutanese curriculum at the moment, based on my observations, please to correct me if I'm wrong now, I think because there's a lack of that, hence more people are hesitant in even doing that by themselves. Because like she said, Mona, the whole journey of exploration is scary, and it's even more scary when you have to do it by yourself, and even more scary if you have other obligations, other responsibilities. So as a very progressive university, Mona, I believe Potter College of Education could be the first university where you have that safe space, that informal dialogue started amongst the students, and I think this could be again implemented in other institutes as well.
Some activities that have been done. We really support the part of education in integrating comprehensive sexuality education in the curriculum for teachers here. And that does include things on how to respect other genders. Another bit from the big initiative is the college actually developed prevention of sexual harassment, exploitation and abuse policy. And now it was developed for the college, but now it's going to be expanded to university wide. So based on that, now all universities, all colleges are able to adopt this. A good aspect is again there is whether that policy how to prevent, manage abuses, exploitation or harassment against the LGBTQ community. So it's been made very inclusive and
Well, I'm quite tempted to also comment myself on Sandhya's wonderful comments. Of course, our path crosses frequently for our spiritual matters, and I think we share quite a lot along those lines. But when you think about identity, which is, of course, in Chile and Lomba, we don't even have a term for identity. It's a primarily Western idea, but we all do have identity. But then I think it's a totally wrong idea, and it would be very un-Buddhist if you think there is a fixed identity. And that is what the Buddha would have opposed very strongly. When you look at something like me, I have so many identities, I would say. I'm a vegetarian in terms of my food, no one discriminates against me for that, and I don't get upset even if I walk into a restaurant and all the meals are non-veg. I just walk out and find another place to eat. I don't necessarily get offended by that. In the same way, I'm in Bhutan because of my origins. Some people think I'm a Secha because I always wear a Secha. I'm a liberal in terms of my political belief, perhaps. So people have so many different factors that make your identity. Sexual orientation is just one. Gender identity, gender expression is another. And I think that should be the most defining and important factor among so many other factors. We have a son, a father, or a brother, or uncle. There's so many identities that we are just a composite of numerous constituents that make us both psychological, physical, social, biological, cultural, and so forth. So when we talk about, I think, issues like sexual identity and gender identity, we are talking about it because the majority has a fixed idea that we have to be men or women. And that's what we just have to overcome. It's not that the LGBTI community has to get special quota and special recognition, but I think what we provide is equal opportunities, full acceptance, mutual respect, and for forming such, for engendering such cultural acceptance, then I agree with you that we need community sometimes. Now, I belong to my Ura Solidarity Association because I have that identity. In the same way, I belong to the Buddhist Scholars Group, and that community helps me with that identity. So I think it's true. We need the collective identity, which Sanjay shares that you all have, but you also have your individual identity when it comes to your culinary taste or dress culture or whatever. So we shouldn't be worried too much, I think, about having a communal identity and also an individual identity. Maybe these all will sort of form harmoniously part of a very holistic, compassionate, dignified self. Any other question? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Phuntsho, and I teach comprehensive sexuality here. So I'm very curious about sexual orientation. When you talk about fluidity, sexual fluidity, so I'm straight right now. But do you think in times, in years to come, that my sexual orientation can change because it's fluid? You're saying, right now I'm attracted to men, but then I also see a few of my friends who have been straight but marrying the same gender now. So, is it not fixed? Will it change? When you talk about fluidity, that means it's going to change.
So when I say gender fluid, gender is fluid, that's the whole point of it. But then it depends on you as a person. Because I've had friends who have been straight their whole life, who have been dating the same sex, and then they end up becoming straight now. So like it depends on the person wholly, because it's like a whole spectrum, and then you can't be on one side one day and the other the next. But then at the same time, there are people who undergo a lot of changes when it comes to romantic relationship, when it comes to attraction as well. Because if I might be attracted to a man, but that can be only aesthetically. It can't be romantically. So like I do find there are like a lot of beautiful men out there, but I'm not attracted to them romantically. I just like what I see, but I don't have that romantic feeling towards them. So it depends on you as a person. If you feel like, okay, I might want to give it a try, that's when your perception of your gender changes. So I think it depends solely on the person.
Which I think is a very important point, but I will first.
I think one sentence, that gender is a social construct, and hence it's not a fact, so hence one sense of identity can change. It can be fixed also. Like, for example, Mr. Phuntsho is adamant, like he's straight, and he's heterosexual, and he's confident in his identity. That's completely fine. In my case, I'm a bisexual woman, and at the moment, I'm confident with that. Tashi went through the stages. So again, it's the fact that you have the agency to explore yourself, and with due time and education or unlearning and learning experiences, be it in terms of romantic relationships or not, even in terms of the culture environment you're in, it can change. But that's all because gender is a social construct.
Yes, thank you. I don't know if I differ a little bit of that with two of you, but anyway, the fundamental sort of understanding I have is that we are all products of so many causes and conditions. So many factors play to shape us.
Yes.
Some social, some biological, some cultural, some religious. So, for instance, a lot of people go from one religion to other depending on their exposure and the degree of inspiration they receive from a particular individual and so forth. In the same way, people go to change in their lifestyle, in their color in their choices, in their dress culture. I think lots of people think sexual orientation also belongs to that same category, and I think that's a mistake. If you have that kind of full liberty to choose without any biological urges or hormonal pressures, then a lot of parents are actually quite hesitant that their children may take up a different sexual sort of practice just out of fashion, let's say, because of interest. But we have to understand that some gay men, some bisexual, some lesbian, whatever identities they are forced by their biological makeup. It's the physical body playing on them to want a man to want a man or a woman to want a woman. It's not so much an influence of the peers or the society. So unless we understand this complexity, I think sometimes we are not forgiving them because we think they're just having fun time or being very selfish in exploring things that are almost antisocial or not aligned to the norms. So I don't know what your take is on that, but there must be, I believe, a strong physical, biological pressure or moral pressure for people to choose the kind of partner they choose.
Yes, I think to a certain extent that is true, though, but I would also like to mention more that even in the community in itself, we do have asexual people as well. People who are not attracted to any other. And like I said, I am a bisexual woman, but I've never dated a woman, so you don't have to act upon your sexuality. So because there are levels to it, the types of attraction and the way you act on it or not, because that can also differ. Hence, there's always a space for one to, again, not be seen biologically as like, oh, we're acting upon their needs or urges or that. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
In your personal experiences, do the LGBTQ plus community face any systematic barriers to participating in the legal force in Bhutan? If so, what are they and what should be done? If not, are there any other forms of difficulties faced?
First, I need to acknowledge that, like I said in the beginning, this is a dearth of data, dearth of studies, especially this week. Whatever I mentioned here, being mentioned is all based on anecdotes from 100 years ago, actually. In terms of laws, just in general, criminalizing homosexuality is a big step towards recognizing and acknowledging the LGBTQI community. That being said, this did not end discrimination, stigma, and violence that happens against the community. There's a lot more that needs to be done. In terms of labor law, systematic, no. The government, in fact, even when homosexuality was illegal before prostitution. So from a systems perspective, I think there wasn't a systematic, say, discrimination against the community. But it still exists in other forms. In fact, just 2 days ago, I was talking to one of the community members. One of our friends, trans man, the woman who's actually identifies as a woman, so identifies as a man, woman identifies as a woman, were looking for a job. Straight away, unfortunately, the private sector went, and then on the faces they said, sorry, no, you can't do this job. Okay. And then it was for a hotel reception or something. And then gets me thinking also, that's why I think this whole debate is about acceptance. To, in a way, not justifying, but on the other side also, you don't have a trans men in a woman as a hotel reception, being a hotel receptionist. So I don't want to say that that's the thing. But at the same time, it's really unfair because they're being discriminated and on basis of gender. So it does exist. We need to change homosexuality is recognized, but on the legal landscape, we have progress, but we still need to progress more. We still need changes, we still need to strengthen our laws and policy landscape to ensure that their rights are actually enjoyed. For instance, because there is no policy, there is no law making this happen where people get discriminated. Okay, if you do have a policy, have a law, at least they have some recourse to some legally to say, okay, it's my right to get a job, you can't discriminate against me on the basis of my gender. And then also a lot has to be done on again, it's back to the same point, it's about our mindsets, society, and our cultural and societal prejudices, that has to change too. Thank you.
I think there are multiple challenges. One example that was quoted last year was, for instance, at the moment in Bhutan, gay marriages are not recognized. So, Pema was sharing that if he wants to go to Australia as a partner of somebody moving to Australia, there is no recognition of their marital status yet, which would mean they wouldn't get a joint visa and the work permit and so on. But the same thing also with regard to identity cards, although the Department of Census has now made accommodation to change the identity card when they change it. There seems to be still no formal policy in place, maybe individual cases. So Have you faced something like that in your life, both of you? Practical challenges? Maybe not.
I think if we don't reveal our sexual orientation, we don't face it. But I would like to mention, I think everyone has seen from ads, job advertisements, sales girl, sales boy. The binary job that is used often restricts the people from the community from even applying for those jobs. And on top of that, because there's no existed policies even in the HR level, in different institutions, hence the language it uses gender not sensitive enough, not inclusive, doesn't accommodate the needs of others who don't fit in the binary realm. So I think that's where, when it comes to Fluidity as well, we do need to have more gender inclusive and gender sensitive policies in place, not only at a national level, but even in institutional and operational level.
I just want to add the review of the gender equality policy that's taking place. Hopefully that address all the discrimination that takes place in the employment field too. I think that would ensure that equality is inclusive and that discrimination is ended.
So I'll now wrap up the session by asking my final question to two of you. So Bishop, if you can just continue and share your thoughts on how optimistic you are in terms of the changes that you expect to bring through UNFPA or to government institutions, and how soon?
Cautiously optimistic. Optimistic in the sense there should be a lot of progress on the legal front. We have recognized homosexuality, government silence for the review of the gender equality policy to treat the needs of concern of the community. At the same time, also cautious because sexual is all about mindsets, norms, values, which do not change overnight, and which really requires concerted efforts. But then again, I would also like to say, I would also like to believe that we are, let's say, by nature liberal, tolerant, and compassionate to an extent. And then that stigma, discrimination, or violence against the community, I like to believe that it's not rampant. And the cases that do occur and that is reported, I'd like to believe that not out of hate or phobia against the community, but more about misunderstanding and ignorance on our part. So in many sense that way I'm optimistic. And then also ultimately once we understand and educate ourselves, I have a feeling that we will learn to accept them as they are, and not as who we want them to be. That's the ultimate goal. And also optimistic because already in the amongst development partners also we've been raising this, we are focusing on them, leading the purpose behind it. We are also now better equipped with strategies, the how to do also, and we are also committing resources. There's a lot of optimism also in that area. And then, in fact, just to mention, before I left, just a colleague of mine gave me a quote from Cisgendered. I think most of you might have heard it. Your sexual orientation has nothing to do with understanding or not understanding the truth. You could be gay, you could be lesbian, you could be straight. We never know which one will get enlightened first. Now I thought that part was the most important part of Stephen's. There's a second part which says, tolerance is not a good thing. If you're tolerant in this, it means you think that there is something wrong that you tolerate. But you have to go beyond that, you have to respect. It's very profound. I have to read it again and again, and then I got the message. I mean, if you're saying about to tolerate something, then you're already passing a judgment on something, saying that is wrong, I'm just tolerating it. So we have to move beyond it. We have to move with respect, and we have to start accepting it. Thank you.
So my final question to two of you is more or less along the same lines. So you're both successful in spite of the challenges in even figuring out your gender identity. What keeps you on top of things? So Regita, if you can go first, you are the way to global rising star, working for an international company. What do you do as a practice or a habit to keep mentally and physically quite agile?
So for me, I think learning never ends with us. So I'm always trying to learn, be it from different people with different mindsets, be it from different educational sides and scholars. I do that all the time. But apart from that, seeing the progress our country has made in terms of accommodating and accepting the LGBTQI+ community is truly motivating now. Because even just like recently being part of the National Gender Equality Policy Reform meeting and being around stakeholders talking about this in a very safe space was very encouraging now. So for me, I really utilize the energy from these safe spaces now. On top of that, of course, for my mental health, I do journal a lot now, actually. Like I said earlier, also, journaling has really helped me entangle, journaling has really helped me clarify the thoughts that have been entangled in my mind. And so I really do, I also would like to recommend people to start journaling on a daily basis. It's really, I think, productive now. And again, apart from that, just to know that, I have the privilege, the voice to come out, to be myself, and to know that there is a whole lot of people behind me, the younger generation, who's going to walk on like a clearer path. It's very inspiring for me now, so that keeps me going. And I also look forward to the teachers in this particular place who are aspiring teachers, again, educating the students in a safe space, allowing them to be themselves, and that's creating a whole generation of inclusive, mindful, compassionate people.
There'll be a lot of people out there watching online or even here in the audience who want to, or who are aspiring to be the next Miss Bhutan. What made you Miss Bhutan? What would be your advice for them?
Life is hard and it is supposed to be hard. That's how you grow and then pick yourself up and then become a more stronger version of yourself. So I've always I've always made it a point that whenever I break down, I stay down for a while and then I try to think about what made me break down, why am I here? Because if I don't think about the things that are bringing me down, that are dragging me down, I will overlook that situation and then I tend to underestimate them. So I try to make myself much more prepared for it if it does come my way the next time. And then I've always had a love for literature. So I've always put my thoughts into words. I've liked writing poems, and then I like to go out occasionally just to have that peace of mind. Because I believe when I'm at home trying to relax, when it's like dead silence, I can't relax at all because I have a wild imagination, and then my thoughts get the worst of me when I'm alone. So I tend to mingle with people a lot and then I rant to them a lot, which makes them quite irritated at point. But then I like to rant to people. I'm like, oh, this happened to me. He did this to me. She did this to me, and then because that's I think it's good to gossip once in a while. I don't know, I really enjoy doing that, but the good kind of gossip. So and I make it a point to tell myself that the top of one mountain is the bottom of the next. No matter how hard it is, I try to motivate myself to keep on climbing, and then I believe in the what ifs of life. If I failed right now, but then if I take a risk in something, what if that risk brought me somewhere bigger? Because that's what happened to me, and that's why I'm standing here today. Because I took a risk and I believed in myself, I believed in that dream of mine. No matter how small it was, I took the opportunity which led into a bigger opportunity and then which again led to another opportunity. So believe in yourself no matter how small that dream is and then keep on climbing. And then have that self-love and acceptance towards yourself because no one will do that for you. No one will be like, oh girl, you look so pretty. No one will mean that and tell it to you. They might say, okay, so you're looking so good today. People might just pass it as a comment, but then you know how you look, right? So I always tell this to all of my friends. I'm like, girl, the next morning you wake up, just go in front of the mirror and be like, damn girl, you look so fine today. Have that self-love for yourself and then look at the difference it makes in your life. Because it helped me a lot in growing into a very confident, in having that passion, and having that passionate self towards myself. Because you need to put yourself first. It's okay to be selfish at times. Put yourself first and then the rest follows. Because I'm very selfish in that way. I always make it a point that I put myself and my dreams first. So yeah.
Thank you. That's quite a lot. Be confident, aim high and work hard, and then have some good gossip. Now we call that civil conversations. So have good civil productive conversations. I normally end the session was by quoting a Bhutanese proverb or a Buddhist saying. For today's topic, as we are talking about not being too fixed about different gender identities or sexual orientation, I thought this verse from Aryadeva, Tapalha, I mean 400 verses, underscores the importance to be open-minded and be a little relaxed about different gender identities. So it was Ganse Juat Tamchela Pomo Mani Yumiba. They say Chite de Lagui Tene Pomo Mani Yim. When the elements which make us have neither male, female, or other gender, how can there be the male, female, and the other based on that? So, with that, thank you, panelists, for joining us. Thank you, audience. Have a good evening. Thank you.